none, can I have a mover for the approval of the agenda? Moved by
Chair Innes,
Councillor
I have to do the protocol
Oh, sorry. You have
and
to
the
do
roll call.
Yep, I'm going too fast. I didn't want to lose anybody. Off to you, Sabrina.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sabrina Valou, and I'm the committee clerk for the Government Relations Committee. This meeting is being live streamed. In order to ensure that this meeting remains accessible to the public, the meeting will be recessed for 15 minutes if the live stream is interrupted or fails. Staff will work to get the live stream up and running as soon as possible, and we will keep the committee informed. I will now conduct the roll call. Please indicate your presence verbally when called upon. Mayor Brown. Mayor Crombie. Councillor Dasco. Excuse me.
Yes. Hi there.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Downey.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Groves. Committee Chair Innes.
Present.
Regional Chair Yanika. Councillor Palashi.
Present.
Committee Vice Chair Raz.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Mayor Thompson.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Vicente. I'll just circle back. Mayor Brown. Mayor Crombie. Councillor Groves. Regional Chair Yanika. Councillor Vicente.
Present.
Thank you. I will now pass the meeting back to Chair Innes to provide over the remainder of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, can I have a mover for the approval of the agenda? Moved by Mayor Thompson. Are there any objections? I can't remember. Sabrina, do I turn it over to you? Can I just call no objection?
You can call for objections.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that's approved. There are no delegations, and so we'll start with government relations update led by Keith Medevich. Keith?
Thank you, Chair Innes, and good morning, members of Government Relations Committee. Sabrina, can you move to the next slide, please? Great, thank you. Today, we'll be providing our government relations update, highlighting a number of key federal and provincial matters that have occurred since our last meeting in June. This includes a high-level overview of the outcomes and implications of the 2021 federal election, as well as the recently delivered provincial speech from the throne. We'll also provide updates on a number of action items related to our delegation meetings at the AMO conference, as well as other upcoming advocacy opportunities. And finally, I'll then turn it over to Aileen Baird, our Director of Housing Services, who will provide an update on the housing file, including the advocacy needed to advance the region's affordable housing priorities. Next slide, please. We'll first start with the federal election, which of course occurred last month. As you know, the vote resulted in a second straight minority government for the Liberal Party and represents no significant change in Parliament. Leading up to the election, we shared an overview of the region's key council-endorsed advocacy priorities with all the candidates in Peel ridings, and further amplified this messaging through the region's social media channels. This document, which is included in your agenda package as Appendix 3 to the report, includes key policy positions related to infrastructure funding, green recovery, sustainable transportation and Vision Zero, childcare, affordable housing, and long-term care. In addition, to help provide insight on where each of the major federal parties stand on our advocacy priorities, staff has produced a high-level analysis of the major party platforms, which is also appended to the report. Next slide, please. From a Peel perspective, the federal political landscape remains relatively the same with few changes. Where the incumbent didn't run again, the Liberal Party was able to hold on to the seat. In Mississauga-Streetsville, Richie Valdez is the new member of Parliament, holding on to the seat for the Liberals in place of the incumbent Gagan Sickland, who did not stand for re-election. Shafkat Ali is the new MP for Brampton Centre, replacing incumbent Ramesh Sangha, who was removed from the Liberal caucus during the last session and did not run again. And finally, in Mississauga-Malton, Ikhwinder Singh Gahir replaces former Liberal cabinet minister Navdeep Bains, who also chose not to seek re-election. Shortly after the election, letters of congratulation and introduction from the chair were sent to all successful candidates. Staff will continue to look for opportunities to engage with our federal representatives and in particular our new Peel MPs to help advance the region's key priorities as the new session of Parliament opens. And of course, speaking of which, on Friday, Prime Minister Trudeau announced that he intends to swear in his new cabinet on October 26th and that Parliament will return on November 22nd. Prime Minister Trudeau also recommitted that his cabinet will remain gender balanced and has indicated that Chrystia Freeland will continue on as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Next slide, please. Moving forward, the Liberal platform includes several priorities that are particularly relevant to Peel, including an investment of $4 billion in a new housing accelerator fund with an annual target of 100,000 new middle-class homes by 2024-25, which is expected to support a wide range of eligible municipal investments. Their platform also includes a commitment to create open access climate toolkits to help infrastructure owners and investors develop projects that ensure Canada is on a path to a net zero emissions and resilient future. In addition, the Liberals have committed an additional $200 million for the Natural Infrastructure Fund to continue funding community-led public green space projects in collaboration with municipalities, Indigenous communities, and nonprofit organizations. Other key commitments critical from a municipal perspective include a new $100 million infrastructure and innovation fund, as well as a commitment to accelerate major public transit projects. The Liberal platform also reiterates plans to support families with childcare, which includes enacting legislation to strengthen and protect a Canada-wide childcare system, reducing fees for childcare by 50% in the next year, and eventually achieving a $10 a day childcare within 5 years or less, as well as building 250,000 new high-quality childcare spaces and hiring 40,000 more early childhood educators. In addition, the Liberals have committed to finalizing agreements with all remaining provinces, including Ontario, which is aligned with the region's advocacy position. Looking forward, with little change to the composition of Parliament, we do not expect a significant shift from the previous government's agenda, and that the Liberals' priorities will likely continue to receive support from the NDP in the short term at least. Next slide, please. On October 4th, Ontario's Lieutenant Governor General delivered the speech from the throne at Queen's Park to open the fall session of the 42nd Parliament. While the speech didn't offer a lot of details regarding the government's agenda, it did provide a high-level overview of Premier Ford's priorities in advance of the upcoming election next year. This includes a focus on addressing the continuing challenges related to COVID-19, as well as the government's plan for economic recovery. Next slide, please. The speech from the throne included a number of themes that are of particular interest to the region of Peel. In relation to COVID-19, the speech acknowledged the need for continued efforts against new variants of the virus, as well as how the pandemic has impacted some more significantly than others. It also recognized that collaboration with municipal leaders, public health officials, frontline healthcare workers, as well as the federal government was critical to achieving high rates of vaccination in the province. In relation to investments to healthcare facilities, the speech included a commitment to provide adequate funding to hospitals, including investments for additional ICU beds, as well as the staff resources needed for these beds. In addition, the government committed to provide funding to build and redevelop hospitals, including a pledge to transform Peel Memorial from a day clinic into a state-of-the-art 24-hour facility. Key commitments in the speech related to long-term care included a $2.68 billion to build 30,000 new and modern long-term care beds in a decade. The province has also recommitted to invest nearly $5 billion over 4 years to hire more than 27,000 long-term care staff, including nurses and personal support workers. This aims to fulfill the province's goal to provide long-term care home residents with 4 hours of direct care per day. Further, the speech highlighted the government's commitment to add 16,200 more personal support workers to the healthcare system, including the province's long-term care sector, by April 2022. A measure of particular interest to the region was the recommitment to address structural challenges in the LTC sector by introducing legislation to protect residents through better accountability, enforcement, and transparency. Regional staff are currently finalizing its comments to submit as part of the province's consultation process to help inform this bill. As the province turns its attention to recovery, the Premier has committed to focusing on economic growth without tax increases or spending cuts. The speech also included a commitment on building roads, highways, and expanding transit, as well as continuing to work with municipal leaders to address challenges impacting the province's social and economic fabric. Next slide, please. As part of the region's post-AMO conference efforts, we continue to follow up on the issues that were raised during our delegation meetings, including correspondence to each of the ministers and party leaders, highlighting key advocacy positions that were discussed. In addition, we are also arranging for more opportunities to engage with provincial decision makers on these key issues, including an invitation to Minister Phillips to tour Moulton Village to provide a more comprehensive overview of the butterfly model and the need to implement emotion-based care in LTC homes. As well, we continue to work with Minister Mulrooney's office to arrange for the minister's participation in a Peel Road Safety Vision Zero Roundtable in the coming months. And lastly, we continue to raise the region's concerns with the PILT regime to Minister Bethlen Falvey to further impress the need for the provincial government to address the negative impacts of the current formula in place for Toronto Pearson. The issue has the attention of the minister's office and ministry officials, and we are hopeful that the upcoming fall economic statement, which yesterday the province announced will be released on November 4th, will include a commitment to address our concerns by introducing reforms to PILT. Next slide, please. Looking forward, the region will continue to leverage opportunities to engage Peel's federal and provincial representatives to advance the region's priorities, including our next briefing sessions with local MPs and MPPs, which is scheduled for December 17th. We are also preparing submissions to highlight our key priorities as part of the provincial and federal 2022 pre-budget consultations, which are traditionally launched early in the new year. In addition, AMO has announced that the 2022 Roma Conference will be held on January 23rd to the 25th. Staff will monitor for opportunities to advance our advocacy efforts, including delegation meetings as part of this conference. At this time, I'll now turn it over to Aileen to provide an overview of some of our housing challenges and some of the key advocacy priorities related to this extremely important file. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Keith. And good morning. It's my pleasure to be here to provide the Government Relations Committee with an overview of the current federal and provincial funding challenges as we try to increase the supply of affordable housing in Peel. Next slide, please. So I'll begin my presentation by quickly discussing the growing need for affordable housing in Peel. I will then focus my remarks on two current and pressing advocacy priorities: the redesign of the federal Rapid Housing Initiative and the funding gap for our housing master plan. Next slide, please. So in Peel, average resale prices are now over $1 million and average rental prices are just over $2,200 per month. And as this slide shows, these price increases are significant and well beyond the increases to household income. What this means is that in order to pay no more than 30% of monthly income towards a mortgage, which is considered the affordable standard, the average family in Peel that wants to enter the housing market would need to save for 26 years for their down payment. A minimum wage household would need to save for 51 years. These kinds of pressures on ownership drive middle-income households into the rental market, which drive prices up and force low-income households out of the market, and as we know, sometimes into cars, encampments, shelters, and streets. These prices also cause families to double or triple up in homes that were never meant for more than one household. These dynamics create unprecedented expectations on the affordable housing system, the system that we are responsible for, to house a growing number of families who can no longer find housing in the market that meets their needs. Next slide, please. As documented in Peel's 10-year housing and homelessness plan and reiterated in several reports to Council, improving housing outcomes in Peel requires additional resources from all levels of government, as well as more participation from the private and nonprofit sectors. In 2017, the federal government re-engaged in the affordable housing file through the National Housing Strategy. The new program within this strategy, or one of the new programs within the strategy, is the Rapid Housing Initiative. To date, the federal government, through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, has released 2 rounds of funding through the Rapid Housing Initiative. Peel has received a total of $53 million to build at least 119 units of permanent or transitional housing for the vulnerable. The Rapid Housing Initiative is unlike any other program we participated in. Key requirements are that the units must be net new to the system, ready within 12 months of signing the agreement with CMHC. In round 1, there was a requirement to build using prefabricated construction methods, and all units are targeted towards the vulnerable and must be affordable for the long term. Next slide, please. While we are grateful for the opportunity to participate in the Rapid Housing Initiative, the program is very difficult to administer and it requires significant risk for participating municipalities. We've previously brought to Council's attention that the Rapid Housing Initiative needs to be better, and Council endorsed this position on March 25th, 2021. In particular, there are 2 key challenges. The first is timing. So 12 months is simply unrealistic unless a project is at the building permit stage. So staff assessed over 100 projects in round 1 and round 2 of the Rapid Housing Initiative, and many viable projects were left on the table because it was simply impossible to complete them within the 12 months. The second challenge is financial. Even if a project could be done in 12 months, there are cost constraints. In our experience, CMHC holds projects to a per unit cost for the overall project that are out of sync with market realities, and this got worse in round 2. And in addition, there are no operating dollars available through this program. Next slide, please. So we, along with other jurisdictions in Ontario and across Canada, have provided CMHC with feedback about how to improve program design. These improvements include providing more flexibility on timing, ensuring allocations reflect the costs in the market, providing greater certainty about funding in the future, consider redesigning the program like the gas tax model, and pre-zoning and providing federal surplus lands at 0 cost as part of the program. Next slide, please. So to date, we've been actively advocating for change at both the staff and political levels. Unfortunately, there were no meaningful changes between round 1 and round 2, except that prefabricated construction was no longer required in round 2. Ongoing advocacy is required as round 3 and possibly round 4 are expected as the Trudeau government is still in power. Next slide, please. So now to the Housing Master Plan. So the Housing Master Plan is Peel's first ever long-term plan to build as much as we can on Region of Peel and Peel Housing Corporation lands. The plan was approved in 2019, and Council agreed to try and secure $1 billion to implement 18 projects from within the plan to create over 2,200 new units in Peel by 2028. To date, $680 million of funding has been secured. $335 million from the region, $276 million from the federal government's National Housing Strategy Co-Investment Fund, and this funding is a combination of repayable and forgivable loans, and $69 million from other federal and provincial funding programs. So a gap of $319.6 million remains. So an ideal partnership would have all 3 levels of government providing their fair share of the required capital. Next slide, please. So as with the Rapid Housing Initiative, we've been advocating to the federal and provincial governments through AMO, through the pre-budget submissions, through our MP and MPP sessions, and through the Chairman's office to fund their fair share of the housing master plan. If the gap is not closed, 860 of the 2,240 units will not be built, and over $100 million of secured federal funds will be lost. So to close, achieving better housing outcomes in Peel requires more funding and cooperation from all levels of government. Existing funding is insufficient, and funding programs like the Rapid Housing Initiative can and should be improved. Ongoing advocacy is essential to effect change and to achieve greater success. Thank you very much, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Eileen. I do have some speakers. Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Eileen. One thing I'm going to say on the Wrapping House Initiative, I know when I was in a conversation with Joanne Vanderheyden, who is the president, and she's their Ontario rep, was saying they were looking for examples. Have we given them examples of what our challenges are so that they can advocate on our behalf? Because that's what they were looking for. They want examples so they can go back to the province.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson, and through you, Chair. Yes, so we have provided a number of examples. We've provided them individually as Peel, Mayor Thompson, but we've also joined forces with all other municipalities in Ontario that receive the funding and tried to collectively put our voice forward through both AMO and FCM, providing examples of these challenges. So we have regular conversations with CMHC trying to affect change here.
Okay. No, I know Joanne was just basically, I was sitting with the Western Ontario Wardens on another initiative, but that was on the table, and she said, look, you got to give me examples so that I can shove back saying why it's not working. So when I heard you speak about this today, I thought I need to ask that. My second question, Madam Chairman, is more towards Keith, and it's just one of the initiatives that we're pushing forward. I think it's important that we delegate at Roma, because that'll be the last time we're going to have a full cabinet meeting before the election. But the AMPs, especially for the SEs, I really think we're going to have to, and maybe I see our regional chair there, but I think we need to get this as a priority. We're close to the finish line, but I really think a strong letter from the regional chair, even signed by the mayors, I think we could all agree, we need to get this to the finish line. We've talked about this. They were supposed to say it's October. Hello, October's over, guys. We haven't heard any announcement on this, but if we don't hear anything by the end of the month, I'm wondering if we need to push it so it can, because it really just needs the final assent to get through this term of at Queen's Park before the end of the year, before the break for Christmas. Is there any way, Keith, that we can really push that part? I think it's extremely important for all of us. We're looking at it is all part of our zero. Vision Zero as well. And we need these speed cameras, but we need to make sure that the court systems aren't backing up in all our local municipalities here. I think we really need to get strong on this messaging. They've promised us the world, but we're not getting any delivery here. And I'm not wanting to beat up on Downey, but we got to. Can you tell us what we can do, or how do we move this as advocacy? Does it have to come through council first before we can do it here? I guess I'm just looking for some clarity on this, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor Thompson, and through you, Chair. We're happy to take your direction on moving forward if we don't hear back by the end of the month, and bringing that forward. We don't, as I understand it, need to go back to council for approval to move this forward. We have very clear direction through council already with respect to the AMPS issue, and very happy to take your direction on that and bring it forward at Roma if that's a possibility as well.
That's excellent. Perfect. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the committee with questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Eileen, for the presentation. I get confused. Do we need a mover to accept the presentation?
Yeah, move receipt, please.
Councillor Raz, move receipt. Any opposed? That carries. Moving on to report 6.1. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns with regards to 6.1? Seeing none. 7.1, Region of Peel MP and MPP Advocacy Update, June 2021. Are there any questions or comments or concerns? No? Can I get a mover for 6.1 then and 7.1? Moved by Councillor Dasco. Are there any opposed? Those two carry. 7.2, 2021 Association Municipalities of AMO Conference Delegation Meeting Follow-up Letters. Any comments, questions? Or 7.3, Chair Ainika's letter dated October the 7th, 2021 to Minister Bethenfelvey. No comments, questions? Moved by Mayor Thompson, 7.2 and 7.3. Sorry, Councillor Raz.
Sorry, back on the 7.3 regarding the PILTs. I'm just wondering if, because we're going into budget time and there's significant impacts for both Peel and City of Mississauga, I'm wondering if we could, we really need a decision from the province on that. I don't know how to press them even further, but timing is kind of an essence and will have a huge impact on our budgets.
Okay, so
I see Gary put his hand up.
Gary again. Gary,
Sure.
go ahead.
Thanks for the question through you, Madam Chair. You know what, we've been doing a lot behind the scenes. I know that Mississauga has met with the ministry. Janice and I met with the ministry a couple of weeks ago. We've been speaking to Ottawa and other airport communities who've been impacted. So the province has been doing a lot of outreach and really asking the right questions. I would like to say I'm mildly optimistic that we might hear something in the economic statement. So perhaps we should regroup on that question, Councillor Raz, after we hear the economic statement. In terms of budget, we'll be clear how we're treating this matter when we bring the material forward. So that would be my update. We're all fairly mildly optimistic, but we're waiting for November the 4th to understand if there has indeed been any movement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Mayor Thompson, mover of 7.2 and 7.3. Any other questions, comments? Any opposed? Those are carried. There's any other matters of other business? Seeing none, there's no in camera. The next meeting is Thursday, March the 3rd. Can I have a mover for adjournment? Moved by Mayor Crombie. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.